The restaurant's ambient lighting cast soft shadows across the white tablecloth. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was staring at her, the woman dining alone, checking her phone every 30 seconds, her untouched wine growing warm. 45 minutes. That's how long she'd been sitting there, watching couples laugh over shared appetizers while she became the evening's cautionary tale about modern dating. Her best friend Rachel had sworn this would be different. He's not like the others, Em. Successful, kind, genuine, trust me. But as another minute ticked by, Emma felt that familiar ache settling in her chest. The one that whispered she'd always be too much work, too complicated, too broken for anyone to truly choose. She was reaching for her purse, ready to end this humiliation, when two small faces appeared at the edge of her table. Twin boys no older than 6, with matching navy sweaters and the kind of wide, earnest eyes that could melt even the most guarded heart. They were breathing hard as if they'd been running. "Are you Emma?" the first one asked, his voice urgent. Before she could respond, the second boy jumped in. "Dad's really sorry he's late. He didn't want to miss this." "He really didn't." Emma blinked, confusion replacing her embarrassment. Your dad?" "Our dad is James," the first twin explained, his small hands gripping the table's edge. "James Morrison. He was supposed to meet you, but there was an emergency at the children's hospital. And he had to stay because a little girl needed surgery and she was scared. And Dad's the only surgeon she trusts, and—" "Noah, breathe," the other twin interrupted gently, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder before turning back to Emma. "I'm Ethan, that's Noah. Our dad really wanted to be here, but sometimes people need him more than he needs. Well, anything else." The words hung in the air like a confession. Emma's grip on her purse loosened as she studied these two little advocates, their faces so full of hope and determination that she felt something shift inside her chest. James Morrison. She knew that name, not personally, but everyone in the city knew about the billionaire surgeon who'd built a pediatric wing at County General and personally funded treatments for families who couldn't afford them. "How did you two even get here?" Emma asked, concern creeping into her voice. "Mrs. Chen brought us," Noah explained, pointing toward the restaurant entrance where an elderly woman stood, waving sheepishly. "She's our nanny. Dad called her from the hospital and asked if she could bring us to explain because his phone died and he felt terrible about standing you up. He sent his 6-year-old sons to a blind date." Emma couldn't help but smile despite herself. Ethan shook his head vigorously. No, he asked Mrs. Chen to explain. "We insisted on coming because—" He paused, exchanging a glance with his brother that held entire conversations. "Because we wanted to make sure you'd wait." "Why?" The question escaped Emma before she could stop it. Noah climbed onto the chair across from her, his brother following suit. They sat side by side, these tiny negotiators in a world that had forgotten how to be patient. "Because Dad's been alone since our mom died 3 years ago," Noah said simply, with the kind of honesty only children possess. "And he thinks nobody will understand that sometimes he has to choose other people first." Emma's heart cracked open. She'd been prepared for another disappointment, another story to add to her collection of dating disasters. Instead, she was sitting across from two children trying to protect their father's heart while he was busy protecting everyone else's. "He's done this before?" she asked softly. "Left dates early, missed dinners. Canceled plans," Ethan listed, ticking them off on his small fingers. "Most women get mad. They say he cares more about work than people. But that's not true. He cares so much about people that sometimes there's not enough of him left." The restaurant noise faded into background static. Emma thought about her own story, The car accident 5 years ago that had left her with chronic pain and a limp she'd learned to hide on good days. The men who'd called her inspirational on first dates but had disappeared. By the third, when they realized her limitations were permanent, the exhaustion of always being someone's charity case, never their first choice. "Your dad doesn't even know me," Emma said, more to herself than to the boys. "Why would he care if I wait or not?" "Because Mrs. Chen told us something." Noah leaned forward conspiratorially. "She said Dad was really nervous before tonight. Like singing in the shower nervous. He never gets nervous." Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "And he bought new shoes." "Dad hates shopping." Despite everything, Emma laughed. It bubbled up from somewhere deep, unexpected, and genuine. These boys were trying so hard, and there was something profoundly moving about their faith in both their father and her potential compassion. "Tell me about this little girl," Emma said, settling back into her chair. "The one your dad stayed for." The twins' faces lit up simultaneously. For the next 20 minutes, they painted a picture of their father. Not the billionaire surgeon from news articles, but the man who did magic tricks in hospital rooms, who learned every patient's favorite color and filled their rooms with balloons in those exact shades. The man who came home exhausted but never too tired to help with homework or read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. Emma found herself ordering them hot chocolates, then an appetizer to share. Mrs. Chen eventually joined them, apologizing profusely, while sharing her own stories of James Morrison, the man who'd given her a job when no one else would hire a 60-year-old nanny, who'd paid for her husband's cancer treatments without being asked. "He doesn't know I told anyone that," Mrs. Chen said quietly. He'd be mortified. "But I thought you should know the kind of man who asked to meet you tonight." Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is James. Mrs. Chen gave me your number. I'm so incredibly sorry. The surgery took longer than expected, but Lily's stable now. I understand if you've left. I understand if you never want to hear from me again. But if by some miracle you're still there, I'm 10 minutes away. I'm still in scrubs and probably smell like antiseptic. But I'd really like to meet you. If not tonight, maybe never, and I'd deserve that too." She looked at the three faces watching her, Noah's hopeful, Ethan's anxious, Mrs. Chen's knowing. Emma thought about all the times she'd been left behind, forgotten, deemed too complicated. She thought about how easy it would be to walk away, to protect herself from inevitable disappointment. Instead, she texted back, "Order the salmon. I'll wait." When James Morrison finally burst through the restaurant doors, still in surgical scrubs with his hair disheveled, Emma saw him scan the room frantically before his eyes landed on their table. His face transformed, relief, disbelief, and something that looked like wonder all at once. The twins jumped from their chairs, running to hug their father, and Emma watched this man kneel down to their level, kissing their foreheads while whispering what she imagined were thank yous. Then he walked toward her, and Emma saw the same vulnerability in his eyes that she'd carried for years, the fear of being too much, of asking too much, of never being chosen when it mattered most. "I'm James," he said, simply extending his hand. "Thank you for staying." Emma shook his hand, feeling the calluses of someone who worked with their hands to heal. "I'm Emma. Thank you for sending the best advocates I've ever met." He laughed, the sound nervous and genuine. As he sat down, still apologizing, explaining about Lily and the surgery complications, Emma realized something profound. She'd spent years believing she needed someone who would put her first always. But maybe real love wasn't about always being first. It was about being with someone whose capacity for compassion was so vast that it made the world better. and choosing to be part of that journey anyway. "Tell me about your day," James said finally, his eyes fully focused on her now. "Before this disaster of an evening." And Emma did. She told him about her physical therapy clinic, about the patients she helped rebuild their lives after accidents and injuries, about the satisfaction of watching someone take their first unassisted steps. She told him things she usually hid until much later, about her own accident, her limitations, her fears. James listened like every word mattered, occasionally interrupted by the twins adding their own commentary until Mrs. Chen gently guided them to a nearby table. When Emma finished, James reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close enough to matter. "I think," he said softly, "that we might both understand what it means to live with pain and purpose." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was too much. She felt like she was exactly enough. The date that had started empty had filled with something neither of them expected. Not romance? Not yet, but the rare recognition of kindred spirits, who'd both learned that the most profound human connection comes not from avoiding life's complications, but from embracing them together. And somewhere in the restaurant, two twin boys high-fived each other, knowing they'd helped their dad find something more valuable than all his billions. Someone who would wait, who would understand, who would choose him even when he had to choose others first.